Josh Nelson is one of the best business minds in the legal field. The law firm that he has built and how he built it, some of the lessons that he learned along the way are all in this podcast episode. Sit down and really listen to what he has to share. It's the insights that he will share will blow your mind. And if you learn from him and take him up on a absolutely no strings attached offer to help anybody, any law firm owner who reaches out to him, learn from him how he built an 8-figure law firm in the estate planning and probate field. Listen and reach out to him. I believe that if you learn from him and execute on what he shares, he'll help you become very wealthy. Enjoy. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to the GLF podcast. I have a remarkable guest with me here today. Josh Nelson of Nelson Elder Care Law, based in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, has built a remarkable business over a relatively short period of time. In 10 years, you built what we talked about before we hit the record button, $12 million law firm with management layer, highly unusual for a law firm. And it is just such a well-structured business, as you told me before we hit the record button, that it's something to admire. And here we're going to talk about how you did it.
Awesome. Appreciate you having me on, Sasha.
So one thing I always ask my scouting team to find me business operators, not lawyers, but business operators who get the business side of things. This is what caught their attention. Your org chart is very unusual.
Mm-hmm.
3 lawyers, if I'm not mistaken. You're the 4th one, but I don't know if
Yep.
you really practice or not, seeing how you have quite a structure there, 28 people, give or take.
Yeah. I come from trucking logistics. I used to run race teams in the background.
What kind of race teams?
Drifting. So Formula Drift for 9 years.
Cool.
Now I do more wheel-to-wheel, Formula or what we call Spec E46, like BMW racing, stuff like that. But
Do you drive yourself?
Yeah. Not very good, but I love doing it. So
that's pretty cool.
But so from my perspective, I think in most law firms, the lawyers are treated as sacred cows. They're treated as these exalted ones. They're treated as the ones that, because they have the knowledge, they kind of hold all the power, all the strength. And so if you look at it from a true business perspective and you think, how is this scalable? How do we really help families? How do we make it so that we don't limit our constraint of the lawyer's time, but we can leverage it? And in order to do that, you need a lot of support staff and a lot of systems and structures. And so whenever we first started, we probably did it a little bit too much. We did it kind of the McDonald's, process everything, get the lowest qualified people in here to do the work. And that worked for the first few years. We helped a lot of families, great reviews, great customer service. But the management of that team was hard because there is just a little bit of a difference between managing. And it was never minimum wage. It was double minimum wage or around there. But you get a lot of life problems. You get a lot of call outs, a lot of people that are great for 6 months or a year, and then something changes in their personal life and they just aren't equipped because they're at that level of career development where they can't take the punches, so to speak. And so we did change from that. Still try and be very much leveraging of the knowledge that our attorneys have, but in a way that we've been able to bring on higher qualified support staff to help make their jobs easier too.
Yeah. My thinking on that is always hire A players. They're free. And people ask
Yeah.
like, what does that mean free? I'm like, you hire a good employee, they're free. They pay for themselves. You hire a really good employee,
Oh yeah.
they're
That's one
free.
of my things that my team always knows is I want to pay you more.
Yeah.
And so like a big part of our compensation is always going to be like bonuses because I want the team to win whenever the firm wins, to have that alignment so that we're all rowing in the right direction. But we have something that I'll tell you burns out attorneys faster than anything else I've ever seen. We have a non-attorney production manager. So if you look at
Mm.
our like actual production manager, she's not an attorney. And
Is that your
even though
COO?
we have a COO that's not a non-attorney as well, but we have
Uh-huh.
a production manager that's a non-attorney too, and she's the one that actually oversees all the paralegals, the administrative team, front desk, as well as the attorneys. Now the attorneys have a managing partner that supervises them for legal stuff, but so many attorneys have never really been held accountable for KPIs aside from just billable time. And just to be blunt, I hate billable time. We don't charge like that. I think it incentivizes
Hmm.
inefficiency. If you have somebody that's really worked in law firms come in, they're going to tell you, I want a utilization rate of at least 85%. They need to bill all this time, blah, blah, blah. And whenever you work the way that we work with flat rate billing, I want the work done as quickly as possible to still get a great result.
Hmm.
And what we find is that people come from that billable model. Say you get like a probate attorney that's used to billing by the hour and they have a trial in the morning. They're going to want like 6 to 8 hours the day before to prep for that trial. And that trial might only be an hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe three at the most. And so that's just so ridiculous to me that you would need 6+ hours of prep to go do a 3 hour trial. If you have that support team structuring things in a way that's efficient and effective, and you're getting the information you need to win, you have what the arguments are going to be, what the bad facts already are laid out to you, and you can sit down and structure that. That person can prep for that trial in about an hour, go execute it. We have an amazing, amazing win rate doing it that way. But if you do the billable hour, you look at utilization based on time, all of a sudden you have attorneys who are getting rewarded for taking 6 hours to prep for a 2 hour case.
Yeah.
And that works great on the billable model for firms. But if you don't use the billable model, you got to dump that KPI. And so often, whenever we would try and find, I think it's kind of a term of art, but like a legal professional administrator or something like that, like they have people that do this specifically for law firms. But going outside of that law firm spectacle and really getting somebody that just worked in an actual company to come in and do it, and I think they'll agree whenever you look at it, what's the thing that actually identifies that we're doing our job well? What's the thing that identifies that not only are we helping our clients in a way that makes sense, but that we're doing it in a way that's profitable for the business? Because the hourly model is pretty wild as a way of trying to be efficient.
So I know you got a degree in finance and you got your accounting. I have a degree in finance. Everything that you're sharing, I know you didn't learn it in school.
Yeah. No, it's
Where did you learn this? Because like I've known thousands of attorneys. You've run
um
circles around practically all of them when it comes to business.
yeah, I think that being broke helps, right? Being broke's an
I love it.
amazing educator.
Yeah.
The first time you think you're starting to make like money and it's really just revenue and not profit,
Yeah.
um,
Hits you
unless you're
hard.
just dense, you're going to learn real quick.
Yeah.
And so I was blessed to be able to find some great mentors, some coaches, and just to explain things like a P&L or a balance sheet to me in real world stuff. I
Hmm.
mean, I am a CFO's worst nightmare because I just want to talk about it practically. I don't want to talk about,
Yeah.
okay, well, the budget variance report says XYZ, blah, blah, blah. We're off by 3.8% here. I'm like, no, no, no. Give me the guardrails. Show me what's above. Show me what's below. Show me what's inside.
Hmm.
And then what are the things that we do to move the needle? Because I don't want to spend money or time tracking a result if we know it's not positive. And so this with marketing, with CFOs, with everybody, they always want to spend hours tracking stuff. And I think if you boil it down, you can just focus on what's the thing that moves us in the positive direction. Like so often people want to talk about things like, what's our revenue per employee? What's our, cost of acquisition on this? Like, and I think all that's valuable, but I like to boil it down. So I know that if I don't have 12 new sales sits or like legal strategy sessions a day, it doesn't really matter what the CFO wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Like I know what our conversion rate is. I know what our average case value is. If I'm not having my team in front of 12 families a day, we ain't making money. And that's something I can carry forward to the team. And I'm a big fan of trying to get the team rowing in the right direction. If you want $1 million revenue firm, you can do it on your own. You don't need to have your team motivated. But if you want to do $1 million in personal revenue, you can't carry that firm all on your back. You need to have people that are, like you're saying, A players. You want to pay them as much as possible because people are going to try and poach your people. Like as soon as you put up that website with your new people's names on it,
Yep.
you're getting hit up on LinkedIn and Facebook Messenger and stuff saying, hey, I'll give you a better deal over here. And so making sure they understand the what's in it for them is super important to me. But understanding that not everybody's into finance. Like you said, even attorneys often don't understand things. It's always, we do profit sharing, and it's always amazing whenever people see taxes. They're like, I've heard of them. I didn't realize companies pay them. Like, it's wild. So really boiling it down into simple numbers and kind of rounding things off. I always round high. So we do just under $12 million this year. And so I want to make sure.
Is that 2025 projected or 2024 realized?
We came in just under 12 for 2024.
Yep.
We're going to take 2025 as a foundational year because next year I want 16. And so we'll do just under 12 again this year. I'm not looking to have a big growth because for me, it's not chasing revenue as much. And I think this is one of the things I love about you is I don't want to have just a big ego number unless I got the profit to match it. So like this year,
I chase both.
We're really
just
aiming.
As hard.
No, and I understand you can't take $1 million out of $1 million firm, so you got to have revenue. But I don't want to. We keep hitting a barrier right at $1 million a month, where our cost of acquisition is like just going up like an exponential curve. So, like that last around $40,000-$50,000 to really get over that kind of like barrier of $1 million, we just keep getting smacked down on the cost of acquisition.
Wait. Give me those numbers again. Your cost of acquisition was $1 million last year on $12 million in revenue?
No. Our cost of acquisition per client starts skyrocketing on a monthly basis whenever we get over $1 million a month. So say that I want to do like 940. I can have a cost of acquisition that's as low as like $500 a client. But if I want to get over $1 million, for some reason, every time we get there, I keep having my cost of acquisition climb to like $1,600.
Do you know why?
And our average case value is only like $5,700.
Right.
So to have something at $1,600 out of $5,700
makes no sense.
All of a sudden, it's easier or better for me personally to do like $950 a month than to do $1 million.
Do you know why it increases so much? And before, sorry,
we're just trying to
should have asked you what is it at $950?
At like 875, it's $317. At 950, it's about $550, and at $1 million, it's $1,600. And I think the big thing is we haven't expanded geographically in a way that supports market penetration at the level that keeps it cheap. So to get that market penetration on a monthly basis, just to hit that like revenue number, that last 20% or whatever of like market penetration with the styles of penetration we're trying to do. So like just spending more on PPC, just spending more on LSAs, that digital, it just goes through the roof.
Yeah.
And so
that last 20% will go through the roof.
Yeah. And I think that's where this year, one of our big focus for especially marketing is different pain points. So funnels for different pain points rather than just trying to take the funnels that we know work for like the
Yep.
primary three and just max them out. We need a fourth and fifth funnel for some of those kind of tangential pain points.
Yep.
So like for what we do is we help people take care of themselves and their loved ones. A big portion of our clients are actually the parents of the people we're reaching through social media. So our ads are to people like our age talking about their parents.
Yep.
But there are parents out there too. But some of those kids need a funnel that says, let's do the right thing to really make sure that your parents are taken care of, that they're not going to be a burden as far as decision making. And that's really where we hit a lot of success. But just to be blunt, there's some kids out there that just need a funnel that say, hey, let's protect mom and dad's money so it goes to you later.
Yeah.
Now, we've shied away from that in the past because, first, those aren't usually my A clients.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're getting kind of denied or kind of knocked back at this revenue level, like that cost of acquisition just goes through the roof, I think we just need to pilot some other funnels and test some different pain points. And I think that's going to get us over there. So that's one of our big focuses for this year.
Very interesting. How much of the market share do you have?
It's really hard to tell. If you look at our space, there's a lot of non-digital marketing that happens. So we deal with mailers, we deal with like digital advertising. A lot of it's referrals, especially for smaller firm bases. So I'm not sure exactly what the market cap is as far as where we're at. If you're an immigration firm, it's really easy to go pull how many cases are filed for
Right.
immigration. For probate, it's easy to see how many cases are filed in probate court. And so like we do some probate work and we're only like 2-3% of like total cases for probate,
Mm-hmm.
like market cap wise. So we could grow exponentially in probate. As far as like pre-planning trust work, things like that, I don't know. Medicaid, the case lists aren't published, like easily available. And so I know there's really only like 6 firms in our area that do the Medicaid trial work. And we do a boatload more than they do, but I don't know exactly what total is. There's still always that portion of, especially with Medicaid work, the DIYer or where the kid or the
Mm-hmm.
loved one's doing it. And I don't have a good way to test or encapsulate what that is. If you work with like a crim law or a divorce law firm or even immigration, I think getting those case numbers is pretty straightforward to be able to calculate. And maybe I'm just in my own head about it. Maybe there's a way that I don't know about it. I'm open to feedback. But off the hit, I don't know exactly how to calculate that well.
Me neither. I was just really spooked when you said the marginal cost, case acquisition cost, it just gets so high so quick.
Yeah. I think, or my hope is that it's really just that we're trying to max out those funnels and those funnels are just hitting like kind of their max appeal. And so I think if we go with different pain points, it'll be successful.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's all marketing is just testing, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's the spaghetti against the wall at this stage.
Mm-hmm.
We have a pretty good idea of what the pain points, the messaging should be, but we're going to have to reframe some things to get our cost of acquisition down as we start really helping that 150 to 200 clients a month level.
Got it. And so your team has 12 conversations, or the target is 12 conversations per day.
Yeah, so we call them legal strategy sessions,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's a free initial consult with a non-attorney salesperson, where they guide you through, depending on the practice area you're calling about, 3 different takeaways where even if you didn't engage, you would find value in it. But it's really to frame what you're really trying to accomplish, how we can help, and then also show why we're the best option for you.
Why are you the best option for them? If you don't
It
mind
depends
sharing.
on the way, but usually it's the proven process. It's that we've done this so much that we know not just the legal side of things, but also the non-legal. So say that you're coming in because your spouse has been diagnosed with something like Parkinson's or ALS or dementia. Our team is going to have special training to be able to help you navigate, not only understand the legal side of it, but also what you need to do as a spouse or a child to better interact with your loved one as they go through this illness explain to you what kind of your rights through your insurance are, what you need to do if something's not going your way, how you can be a better advocate for your loved one to make sure that they're getting the best care. Because the reality is, the person with the best fighter in their corner is the one that gets the best result. And we need that wife or that husband or that daughter to be that advocate whenever that person's diagnosed with something wild. Because if they're sitting there in a care unit or an assisted living and there's 8 other patients per nurse, we want your loved one to not just get fair treatment. We want them to get the best treatment. And so, like, little stuff, like bring in a refrigerated thing of like Diet Coke to the nurse's station. If you want your loved one that's in a care room to get more attention, put a candy bowl in there with like individually wrapped fun sized candy bars. Like, these are the kind of things
No
that do it.
kidding.
Yeah. Like,
Wow.
these are the kind of things that doing this 7,000 plus times gives us a unique differentiator versus somebody who kind of practices in this area, like hung their own shingle, but also does your divorce and your car accident too. Like, this is all we do. And so my team is really well trained in the non-legal side of how to help you evaluate, why would you want to move your mom into an assisted living? Well, she probably doesn't want to go. So how do you have that conversation? How do you pick the right assisted living for her? Because they're all different kinds. Some are like cruise ships on land with lots of activities. Some of them have marble floors. Some of them are really, really nice. But like, if your mom moved out of a very conservative home that hasn't been, upgraded since the late 80s or 90s, she doesn't care about the marble floors. So then what do we look at? We look at, okay, how are the caregivers treated? Whenever you walk in, do they know who your mom is by name and where she's at? Or is she just the lady in room 242? Like, those are the things that we can really differentiate. And we have those for kind of each practice area that we work in to make sure that people are getting the support they need beyond just the legal paperwork.
How did you develop this knowledge set?
Just doing it a lot,
Just doing
caring
it a
about
lot.
the people. My mom's the one that started the firm, Cindy. And whenever she started it, she didn't need the money. And that put her in an amazing position to be able to really care. My mom went to law school with me as a bet. She bet me she could beat me on the LSAT,
Did you?
and she did. Um, she she beat me by 1 point,
Huh?
and we
Well,
took
she
it
won the
again.
bet.
We both increased by 3 points, which means she still beat me by 1 point. But it was enough to get scholarships. And so she was a director of IT at Home Depot, um, well off money wise, way above what the average salary for an attorney is. And she wanted to kind of go into a different phase of her 50s and say, how do I give back? How do I help? The money part's taken care of now. How do I give back to my community? And so she worked for like the elder law clinic at law school. After that, she started her elder law practice. She always wanted me to come work with her, but at the time I was doing tax law stuff that paid way better. Her vision of a law firm was like 3 people helping a few people a month and really making an impact that way. And in order for me to come work with her, we had to change that. There wasn't enough meat on the bone for both of us to eat and do that. And so, over 10 years, we've grown that into, um, I mean, literally helping over 150 families a month.
You have something that's so incredibly special.
Yeah.
I get people like you on this podcast, but very rarely.
Well, I'm taking that as a compliment.
It
I know
is a
you have some
compliment,
good
like
things.
very, very, very rarely. Like, this is incredible. And you've been in this business for a decade, and she
Yep.
started like I think 2, 3 years before you joined, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And you do 150 families per month.
Yep.
I don't know what an average estate planning law firm does, but I
Nowhere
wouldn't be
close.
surprised if those are the annual numbers for many.
One more time.
I wouldn't be surprised if 150 is like the annual number
Oh,
for
yeah.
many law firms.
I think it is. And I think part of it, the reason that you don't see estate planning firms grow bigger than that is because people get complacent. If you're
Hmm.
doing this for the money and you start making, 500, 600 take home, that's a pretty good gig for most people, right? And then in order to grow past that, you got to bring on staff and you have to grow as an owner to become a leader. I'm not a good person leader. I'm just not. I'm too demanding. I'm too numbers focused. It's really hard for me to sit with somebody and really talk about how the fact that I need them to work 40 hours a week. So, I mean, just to be honest, we don't even work 40 hours a week, we work 35 hours a week. Um, just culture wise, that was something that was always important to my mom. And so we've still carried on that tradition. And then people will come and tell you that like working 4 hours a day is too much to work. And I think that's very frustrating whenever you were in the trenches and you were
Yeah.
working 10-hour days to get this thing off the ground. And you got some attorney that's working 4 or 5 hours a day saying, well, if I'm not partner, I'm going to leave. I'm going to say bye. Like, and I think that's where people get frustrated. That growth period for an estate planning firm between 3 and 5 million a year, I think is death zone. I think you got to burst through that window
Hmm.
super, super fast. So like if you look at my team now, I have a COO, I have a production manager, I have a director of IT, I have an HR person. I mean, my leadership team is more in salary per year than what I think most people take home as a solo. And especially whenever you have to start hiring people that cost more than attorneys, estate planning owners get worried. So, like, my COO makes more than a normal estate planning attorney does, but she was rock star. She works with people like Cameron Harold from like 1-800 Got Junk fame. I mean,
Hmm. I
literally,
love
he
that
took his
guy.
place to like $100 million
Have
before
you
he
read
left.
his Double book?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a great book. I read it years ago. It's fantastic, especially chapter
Whenever
11.
Kim is my COO, and whenever
Uh-huh.
she came on board, she made me read his second in charge
I have not
because
read that one.
um, it's how to work with a COO. It's how to give up control because I think so many times as a entrepreneurial, like as somebody that's starting, it's hard to give away the baby, right? It's
Hmm.
hard to let somebody babysit your kid
Yep.
and not just be overlooking their shoulder, give them the rope to make mistakes so that they can learn some of the things that you had to learn. You know, you asked how I got good at understanding the numbers, and it was by having months when I had to put money back in the firm, right? How do you let your COO make those kind of mistakes without just, firing them right away? And
How long did it take to get to that $3 million top line?
um, I don't have the numbers right off my head. I
But by the way,
apologize.
I'm loving this part. So this is pre-recording, but if you allow me to share this,
Yeah.
this will be like the whole thing because you're not afraid to talk about these things. I think a lot of people who listen to and watch this podcast, they're small law firm owners with bigger aspirations.
Oh
And
yeah.
many of them do not know how to break through that million or 2 or 3 million.
Yeah.
So what you're sharing is like it's possible. You just have to become a business person more than an attorney.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be willing to let go of the reins. Whenever we went from 3 to 5 was pretty quick. It happened like within a year. I don't remember
Hmm.
which year it was. I think it was 2021. Um, but then after that, that's whenever it gets scary as all get out because it's more than you can jump in and fix. So like sub $3 million is an estate planning firm. If your attorney quits, you can take on those cases. You can go do those meetings. You can go do those sits. You can kind of plug yourself back in. But I mean, like today, between the three offices, we run 4 conference rooms for each office. So 12 conference rooms with 4 different sits a day. I mean, there's almost 50 meetings a day that could be happening. Usually we're closer to 36, 40 on that. I can't cover that. I can cover 5, right? I can cover 10% of that. And that's really scary. Last year, we had an attorney that just didn't get our mission. We do a lot of asset protection, and part of asset protection is making sure things like hospitals don't get paid before your wife and kids. That's fair enough in my book. But he just had a religious thing going on where he didn't feel like that was appropriate. and he kind of poisoned the well for another attorney. And so I ended up firing two attorneys within 30 days. And that's rough. A lot of times, even as a semi mature business owner, whenever you got to fire one attorney, you're thinking, well, hell, who's going to do this work? Or, am I going to have to jump into this? And then whenever you know the right thing to do is to fire two, that's really rough. But I'm at the point now where like my hiring manager already had contacts in the wings.
Mm-hmm.
She'd already been keeping in contact with people that we could hire. She replaced them within 4 days. Like
Astonishing.
like attorneys, like main associates come in, run meetings, and so a lot of people worry, I think, and I think this is one of the reasons people don't scale past 1 million or 3 million in estate planning, is that it's going to get harder. You got to deal with more BS as the firm grows. But the truth is, it gets so much easier
It's the opposite of
because,
that.
yeah, you have a team that is literally picking things up and going for you. There's so much that occurs while I'm on this with you. My team's off helping families, making money, delivering stuff, winning cases. And that's what I'm about. How do we make that impact with families? And then the next stage where we go from here is how do I make sure that my team's getting that development? Originally, I wanted to help a bunch of families as clients. Now I'm at the point where I want to help a bunch of families internally. I want to make my team millionaires now. I want to be able to see my COO and my top associates be able to grow in ways that they're retiring in their mid 40s. Like that's a win for me is my next goal. I know we've got the system and process and stuff down to help the families for elder law and win guardianships and win probates. But how do I make sure that we're profitable enough to reward that team where that team's going to have an amazing life? And it's all because they've given great stuff to me.
This thinking, very unusual. Is this your mom's influence? Or is it all you?
Oh no, it's definitely a lot for my mom. My mom's an absolutely amazing woman. I come from a family of entrepreneurs on my mom's side. So her dad never finished fourth grade. Um, he ran away from living out in Wyoming and literally joined the circus when he was 8. His dad died whenever he was young. His mom was a single mom of 5 rambunctious kids, mean as a snake. And he literally ran away from home at 8, joined the circus, and then just made his way from there. Never really got a GED, drove semi trucks, eventually started his own electronics company, like back whenever cell phones were huge, bag phones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But always worked multiple jobs, drove truck, ran cell phone stands, ultimately became a meat distributor for like grocery stores prior to Kroger and Publix and stuff. Whenever you think of like Winn-Dixie's or IGA Foods or some of those smaller grocers that don't really exist anymore.
Oh, Winn-Dixie is here. I'm in Florida.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Winn-Dixie is big here.
So they usually get their meat from like an independent
Mm-hmm.
wholesaler. And so whenever I was little, I would go spend the summers with my grandparents. And I mean, even whenever I was 10 years old, I'm working in those big freezers, pulling meats and, writing how many pounds of this box on the like bill of lading and stuff. I mean, it's just, I cannot thank enough my mom and my grandfather for giving me the gift of believing in me that I could do anything I wanted, but also giving me the opportunity to work for it and start a business at a young age. I mean, I've just really, really been successful because of the support they've given me throughout the years. And not just like financially, but the education, the ability to understand that, like in college, I did dry creek beds, like, the landscaping stuff, but like heavy
Yep.
stonework.
Yep.
You're talking with somebody at a party, and all of a sudden they're like, "I'm paying this guy $20,000 to put in a dry creek bed." I'm a 17-year-old kid being like,
I'll do it for
"I can do
6.
that. I'll do it. I'll do it for 10." And then you realize, oh man, there's a reason people are charging $20,000 for this. But by then, I was just 2 feet in, and absolutely, I think one of the things that they've always instilled in me is don't be afraid to make that jump. Have confidence in yourself that you'll do it, but also be understanding that it's going to be hard work. I can sit here today and my life's pretty amazing and easy. I've gone through it though. I've
You paid
started
for it.
businesses. I've had businesses that have failed, um, and you learn those lessons.
Do you have kids?
I have a 13-year-old stepdaughter, so I'm in that wild perspective of not knowing how to best
Uh huh.
coach her. I'm at a point now that she would never have to work a day in her life, but how do I get her to still go do it? And I think that's the struggle that so many people like me. I don't normally talk about it, but whenever I was young, my mom was a single mom. My biological father was an alcoholic. They divorced whenever I was 3 months old. And she went back to college with two kids, no income. And my grandparents, who owned an apartment complex, did not even give her a break on rent at the apartment that we stayed at.
Was that on purpose?
I did. Grandpa's kind of stingy. It might have just been him, but I think it was. And I think that those are some things that my mom did for me that were hard love too. Um, I had to buy my own for like my first car and stuff like that. Um, and I appreciate that. I
Yep.
always felt it was a confidence that I took that they believed I could do it the same way I think my grandfather believed my mom could do it. And then proving to yourself is how you build that confidence. People always wonder, like, how do you get confidence? It's like by winning, by
Yeah.
doing the hard stuff.
Yeah. By
And you
losing a lot
find,
too.
yeah, it's, I don't think I was ever in a spot where, like, I had a true risk of homelessness. I know a lot of people do. Um, but I've lived out of a truck before. Whenever I was doing an auto transport company, like where you move like cars from auctions down in Florida or Georgia up to Chicago and stuff. I didn't have a house. I was living in a truck. Um, I think that often we don't understand that those are the times that build us. After
Hmm.
doing that, building a law firm wasn't that hard. You know, you're not going to freeze to death in your
No.
law firm building. You get stuck out on, west of Chicago in the winter and your truck breaks down. I mean, there's some legitimate fears that you're going to freeze to death. And so I think that's what builds grit. I think that's what builds, the easy times is the hard times. But
Hmm.
I don't know, man. I think with parenting, I'm at a loss. I'm always open for that. One of the things that so many people that create that first level of wealth in their family, I think always struggle with is how do we raise our kids in a way that they're going to be successful and not just entitled. It's
Yeah.
hard to sit across from my daughter's mom and really, really say, hey, we got to get her to work hard on this whenever we know she doesn't really have to. I don't know. You want to
Yeah.
know how to run a business? I can help you. You want to know how to parent? Talk to me in 20 years.
There's a good little book published in 1996 titled "The Millionaire Next Door."
Yeah.
One of the key lessons from that book is that wealth tends to skip a generation
Yeah.
because those who build it make it easier, not for the very next generation, because they usually see their parents work hard, but for their grandkids, it comes as a given.
Yeah.
It's built in.
That's so my grandfather, like I said, never even finished fourth grade. He's passed away last year. Um, Whenever he died, he created a scholarship. And funny enough, he never paid for any of his kids to go to school. It's such a weird dichotomy, like how we, I think, transition through different decades of our lives. During my 30s, it was all just hustle, work, 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 work. And I think I missed a lot of my daughter's life that
Mm.
I'm going to regret later. But I'm at a point now, and I mean, teenage years so far, everybody complains about them, but man, I'm loving them. Um, we take her and her friends, and every Saturday we go do something like rock wall climbing or like those trampoline parks or just take them to the mall. And the ability to be in a spot now that doesn't question what stuff costs whenever it comes to your family is pretty cool. Whenever we go on trips, if she wants to bring a friend or, especially nowadays, kids are so connected digitally
Hmm.
that it's hard to get them to hang out together. But like if you take them to Six Flags or you take them to the mall or you take them to come do this stuff, I think my daughter has in-person experiences that her peers don't necessarily have. And it was weird for the parents whenever I first started like getting them together, right? They're like, "What? You're going to take my kid? You're going to cover all the costs? Like this is weird."
Hmm.
And I just wanted my daughter to have friends because um, in her mind she had friends, but it was all through like they would watch like TV and like text each other back and forth, and that was them hanging out.
Yeah.
And I just think about some of like the best times of my life. And again, maybe it's just old, maybe it's just a generational thing, but like just hanging out with buddies, in the same place, like being in each other's houses, going and doing stuff together. And maybe I'm just trying to hold on to a dying thing, but
It's the
it
right
means a
thing,
lot to
though.
me. It's really cool to be able to do it.
Yeah. It's really interesting to me. Some of the role models, as far as raising your kids right, people who have done exceptionally well financially, not your and my level, I mean,
Yeah.
exceptional. Warren Buffett, Kevin O'Leary, and others who told their kids, this is what you're going to get of what I got. I got this much. You're going to get this much. Everything else when I'm dead goes to charity. Don't even think that you're going to get any of this. Make the best of what you have coming for you, to you, and that's it. Be
Yeah.
self-reliant.
I think it's hard. So like with what I get to do with estate planning, I'm in a weird spot. Um, I've done high end net worth tax planning. I mean, I have clients who are billionaires that are like personally just engaged with me to be able to make sure they have tax planning and estate planning in line. And that's really cool. But their families aren't always that great either, right? I mean, I think so often you have to do it. There's an amazing guy named, I won't share his name, but he's out of New York. He used to be a finance bro in the 90s and early 2000s, over $1 billion under management as a financial advisor. And in the early 2000s, he shares the story about how he thought he was happy. His kids were doing awesome. He had a great wife, but his wife came and asked for a divorce. And it just floored him. And it really made him rethink what he wanted to do with his life. And he was actually able to save his marriage, be more present in his kid's life. And now what he does is like high school athlete coaching, like not just from like how to play tennis better or something like that, but how to really kind of do like life coaching for teenagers in high school that are going on to play sports in college and stuff like that, and build them an amazing foundation with their parents and themselves and their friends. And I love that. But I think that it's so often that whenever you peek behind the curtain, even people that are exceptionally wealthy still struggle to have the right relationship with their kids. I know many people that had hundreds of millions of dollars and their kids ended up committing suicide. And I think that is the wildest pain that a parent will ever feel,
Hmm.
because even if it has nothing to do with us as the parent, it sure as hell feels like it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's going to be my next. I think that's part of the next venture, right? Is how do we make sure that whenever we look back, we didn't leave anything on the table, that we didn't sacrifice just too much for work, but that we also provided a future for our kids in a way that we honestly feel we did the best we could.
Yeah. When I was 18, this is 28 years ago, my best friend committed suicide.
Oh wow,
This is 28 years ago. His mom is still not fully over it.
yeah.
I'm friends with his parents. I've been friends with them for close to 30 years now. There's never really getting over that pain. It
Some of
stays.
some of the things that like clients that stand out the most are the ones that have lost a child.
Mhm.
The watching them go through that process. Um, in Georgia, we don't have like cleanup teams. Like if you shoot yourself,
No
somebody
way.
love, and trust is cleaning that up. And a lot of times it's the parents.
Yeah.
And again, kind of getting away from the legal part of it. I
Hmm.
mean, I got to guide these parents that they aren't the ones going in there and do it. like crime scene cleanup is expensive as all get out, but the emotional trauma of doing that, I don't think leaves you. And so, $3,000 to have somebody come and scrub that apartment afterwards is definitely worth it compared to, like you're saying, nearly 30 years of trauma afterwards.
Yeah, his mom found him. His mom found him on Mother's Day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that just, it will stay with her forever. They're well into their late 60s now. It's that pain's not going anywhere.
And
Yeah,
I don't think it ever will. I mean, and I don't know the circumstances, and I won't ask you to share them, but
it was a stupid teenage stuff. Oh, this girl
yeah,
broke my heart. Life's not worth living.
yeah.
Something he could have gotten over in the next 2 weeks. Yeah, just that.
Yeah, I mean, so like for me, one of the big things that I give back to is essentially like alcoholic recovery and addiction recovery. Um, there was a point in my life where like I drank too much and it held me back. And I look at the things that I'm able to accomplish now with sobriety, and that's something I want to support. But like my sister is actually really huge into like suicide prevention. She's had a lot of friends that have unfortunately suffered with bipolar and suicidal
Mm.
thoughts and things like that. And the toll that it takes on people, how helpless they feel over what something like you and I, just in a rational state of mind, are thinking, $1,000 would have saved that person's life. A friend to talk to and be like, man, I know you thought she was the love of your life, but there's billions of other people out here. Like, let's go
Yep.
for a hike.
Yeah.
It's wild. In what I do, most of my clients will still have a relationship with me whenever they die. I deal with a lot of people that are in their older years. I have 7 clients over 100. I deal with a lot of death in my firm. And even whenever we're older, it's a unique thing. My intake team has to be specifically trained to not get burnt out because whenever I first started, I didn't realize that this is the front line taking these calls whenever you lose your mom. Whenever you lose your spouse or your mom or whomever, and you're that executor or you're that trustee, I'm going to be one of your first calls. And it's not going straight through to me. It's hitting my intake team first.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to make sure that those ladies are well equipped to not only be able to take that call, handle it themselves, but also make sure that you understand what's going on. Even whenever somebody's had a terminal illness, whenever they lose a loved one, they go through this like almost PTSD period
Mm-hmm.
where like you'll call in and you'll say, hey, Josh, I lost my wife. I don't know what to do. Where do I go from here? And we used to try and like explain it to you and fix the problem right then so that you knew, hey, this is what you got to do. Now we give you 3 things to do and we call you 3 days later because you need at least 3 days before you even remember a single thing that I tell you. It's wild just how our mind can play tricks on us, how it tries to protect us for harm and trauma. But yeah, I think losing somebody is always going to be an enigma for us. I think it's always going to be something that's really, really hard for us as a human race to grasp.
What are the 3 things that you tell them to do?
The first thing we do is have them handle the remains. So walk them through whether the person wanted to be like buried or cremated. Then figure out who they need to notify as far as like family that needs to be aware. And then second, make sure that things like the house are locked up because a lot of people, whenever they find out that somebody died, whether it be lawn guys, caretakers, or just sons and daughters, go into the house and steal sentimental things.
Yeah,
Then
something you wouldn't think about at such a moment, obviously.
yeah, but it causes more fighting in probate than you'd ever imagine. People don't fight over money. Money's really easy to divide. So, like, if mom died with 200 grand and has 4 kids, there's not a whole lot of question there.
Mm-hmm.
But if mom was an artist and had
Mm-hmm.
some 8x10 painting on her wall that all of a sudden got missing between the time she died and the time that we're distributing personal items, they're all going to sue each other for thousands and thousands of dollars.
Wow.
Or like a fireman's helmet is probably one of our most problematic things we've ever done. firemen's helmets, like the yellow fire hat they wear, worthless value wise because they age out. They're only certified for so many years. So like the firefighters get them whenever they retire. And a guy had multiple kids. All of them wanted it. There's only one. He didn't specify who. And so that's what they were fighting over. But they went to court and fought over a bunch of ancillary stuff just because they wanted negotiation power against that fireman's helmet. Like, that's wild.
People can be very irrational.
We had
Very irrational.
over a $20,000 probate one time over a bread box. Like, do you know what a bread box is? I don't even think people use them anymore.
No, I had one growing up.
Yeah, I remember my grandparents have one, right? It's like this little accordion wood thing that like rolls up and you keep the bread in there so it's not just sitting on your counter. Well, if grandpa hid the cookies in there, now all of a sudden it's a sentimental thing. And so who gets this? I mean, you wouldn't buy it at a yard sale for $5, but we're going to go spend $20,000 fighting over who gets it. Like, that's what we do whenever we do pre-planning for people to help make sure that they understand. Because everybody always thinks it's going to be over the money. It's not the money. It's always the stuff. Money's easy to split.
I've never heard that before. I was certain it was always about something that has high monetary value.
No, and people with low money fight more than people with a lot of money. You get somebody that dies with 300 grand in a house, probably not a whole lot of fighting there.
Mm-hmm.
You get somebody that dies with 40 grand and a house that one of the kids lives in, like moved back in with mom or dad before they passed. That's going to be, you better have a good plan. Otherwise, that's going to get expensive.
Crazy. Getting back to your business side of the business. Imagine that you're starting this law firm from scratch. You just sold your law firm. You moved to a different market. Nobody knows you. You start from scratch. How do you get to the same top line as where you are today in fewer years than it took you to get to this point with this law firm?
I love that question. Yeah. I think anybody that you talk to that has done it would say I could do it twice as fast and at least as easy. Because you already know the rate. You've already made the mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing I would do is model somebody else that had already done it. Like if I was truly starting from scratch in a different practice area, like let's say I wanted to go be an immigration attorney or a bankruptcy attorney or something like that, I would go make friends with somebody that was in a different jurisdiction, that wasn't a competitor, that is just killing it. I would say, Sasha, is it okay if I come do an office visit with you? I'm over in New Orleans. You're down in Florida. We definitely don't have any kind of competition between us, but I respect you. I've seen some of the articles you put out, and I just want to see behind that curtain if you don't mind. And almost anybody that I found that's successful will 100% say, come visit. And then I would just take copious notes. I would come with written questions, and I would try and squeak every little bit of information I could from them. And then I'd go home, sit on it for a couple days, and then I would make my hiring plan. I would say, based on the things that they told me were important in that practice area or in this firm, what do I need to do in order to win? Right off the bat that it doesn't matter how great of a practitioner you are if nobody knows about you. And so first, you better have a marketing plan. And just arguably, you probably don't have the strength in there, so you better hire somebody to get you there. Because if you don't have the phone ringing, if you don't have the web forms coming in, nothing else really matters. I would then make sure that I led my wages with sales and marketing spend. Often people try and build the factory before the need is there. Mm-hmm. And that's when people burn out, because if you don't have profit, nothing else matters. Especially a lot of people that took like those idle loans or the PPP loans, man, they just built up these ginormous factories and they didn't have the demand, and then they're doing layoffs, and that's wild. And so I think what you got to do is make sure, like, think of it like a train. you're going to have that head car, that engine of marketing that needs to flow into the coal cart of sales. And then everybody in production has just got to hold on. You'll figure out how to deliver that product, and you're going to change what that product is based on your client needs. I didn't start the firm saying, hey, I need to give all these other solutions and scripting on how to have these conversations because that's what people value. I started it like an idiot thinking, man, if I have the best power of attorney out there, people will beat a path to my door. You know what? Nobody cares. It's a commodity. Like, I know it's different. Other lawyers know it's different. Judges and banks know it's different. But the person buying it thinks it's the same as everybody else down the street.
Yep.
So I got to make sure that I have that megaphone. I got to make sure that I have that marketing driving whatever firm or business that is. Because once you have that need, then you have cash, and then you can always hire the best people to do production. But if you try and hire the best people to do production and you got them sitting idle, it's going to be toxic fast.
Brilliant. Spoken like a true businessman.
Always learning, always trying to get better.
I love it.
I think that's the other big thing is like for growth is you got to make sure that you're not the biggest fish in the room. So like even whenever you go and like work with coaching companies and stuff, and you become their success story, right? Which I've been able to do a couple times, very thankfully. You need to go get a bigger coach, right? If everybody in the audience is coming up and shaking your hand and telling you how great you are, it feels awesome for your ego, but that ain't how you get better.
Get out.
You need to go talk to somebody else. It's I joined a group that I wasn't really qualified to get into. Back whenever we were around like $5.5 million, I wanted to be in this group, and it was a $10 million minimum to get in. And I got my buddy to vouch for me that was in it. They interviewed me. I came in. I'm a lawyer. I'm going to their conference. I'm sitting outside in this like chair in Arizona, feeling great about myself, feeling like I crush it. The night before, I spoke to over 7,000 attorneys. I'm on high. There's like a 23-year-old sitting in a chair next to me that does $25 million a year with a staff of 3, teaching moms how to sell. You want to talk about humbling? Like, when there's always, a faster car in the parking lot, or you're never going to be the best, and so you just got to keep changing your settings until you're getting humbled, until you feel like, hey man, I don't deserve to be here.
Who was or is the most impactful coach or coaching group that you've been in?
There's a guy named Joe Polish. He runs a thing called Genius Network.
I know who it is. Yeah.
He knows everyone, and he is 1,000% the most giving person I've ever met in my life. He has an ability to talk with you that I think is unmatched by anyone else, and somehow he just remembers every nuance. You could sit down with him for 45 minutes like we have, and a year and a half later, he's going to remember some nuance of this story. It is just a ridiculous gift he has, and his ability to connect people that can work well together in a really caring way, I think is just hard to match.
Also really remarkable, most lawyers, when they think about coaches and coaching, they gravitate towards somebody like in the industry, which Joe Polish is definitely not.
No, Joe's not.
Like
Joe doesn't really like attorneys, just heads up, guys.
Yeah. Super interesting. I want to ask you for this little favor. Your strategy for building a new law firm is remarkably simple. Many people know about it, but most people are too sheepish to go and ask somebody else how they did it and how they would do it again. Because you put it out there, would you be willing, if one of our listeners or viewers reached out to you and went like, Josh, can I spend a little time in your office? Can you teach me how you do this or how you did this?
Oh, yeah. I love doing it. So one of the things, I do site visits all the time because I get people that like hit me on Facebook Messenger. Like my Facebook is just my real name. Like, and so people are like, hey, saw you speak, saw you do this, can you help with this? And I'm always happy to help. I think that the idea that anybody's a competitor is such a scarcity mindset that it doesn't favor anybody. And so I know that if we can help more people get their stuff together when they age, they're going to be so much more successful in life. And that trickles down to generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Nursing homes cost like 10 grand a month. I don't care how well you did. If you don't have a plan, you're going to go broke, or at least you're going to spend a couple $100,000 that could have just gone to help your kids. And so I love sharing the message. I love having site visits. I think that the more open people are with sharing the stuff with me, the easier it is for them to get the benefit of it. But I always sit down with people, come visit the office, come see what we got. We'll put a conference room up. I love to go through people's P&L with them if they're willing to share. I think that real quick, we can show, are they not tracking the right thing? Do they not even know what their cost of acquisition is? Do they not even know what their conversion rate is? Do they know which one of their salespeople or which one of their intakes has like a big hole in the funnel afterwards? I was able to help a guy, longtime friend, known him through different networking groups for a couple years. He asked if he could bring him and his leadership team down. So 4 guys came down for a morning, originally from Michigan. And we were able to find within like 15 minutes a hole in his process where he added $1 million in the next quarter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's sort of like proofreading your own stuff. Once you've read through like your work so many times, you're blind to it. 100%. And you take it to somebody else or somebody that's a higher level than you, and they're going to look at it and say like, Sasha, what the heck you doing here, man? Mm-hmm. Like, I can't. You got a 34% close rate. Your offer sucks. Something is wrong here.
Yeah. To testify to that, I am presently in the process of interviewing 5 sales coaches. Our sales is good, but I know it can be at least 50% more effective.
Yeah.
And I don't see that gap anymore. I built it. I just don't see it. So I wrote up a 3-page document explaining our current sales process and what I think might be the gaps, but I don't know. And I filtered that document to 5 people.
Yeah.
Tell me what you can do. You'll be hired. I'm going to hire 1 because I can't solve that problem anymore.
And I think that's the part that makes you a business owner and a leader versus just, like somebody that's trying to like snake through it, right? We wear so many hats whenever we're getting started. And so like even with marketing messaging, I think I'm good with it. But you go ask somebody that's really a good marketer and they're going to be like, you got curse of knowledge, man. You can't, what you started with, you were still new and could relate to your client. After you do this 7,000 times, I can't be the one that creates the marketing messaging anymore because I can't see it from that set of eyes. And that's crazy that that's something I've lost along the way. But if I don't recognize that, we're going to put out a bunch of marketing that would work great for attorneys that need their families to get planning. And there's just not that many of them. I need regular people on the street to really know that they need help. And that doesn't come from me anymore. And that was something I always felt really, really good about. Whenever I started, they would always joke that I kind of had a silver tongue with marketing messaging, or I'd be able to really like get stuff that landed well with clients. And I don't know, I've lost it over the years.
I think it's normal.
Yeah.
I think that if we as business leaders do not fire ourselves from certain positions every year, we turn into our greatest enemies.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, even from like your perspective, whenever you're like, it's good to not be able to see your issues because it means that you're positive about your business. One of the reasons that I don't work directly with a lot of my teams is I can be pessimistic from the perspective that I'm always looking at how to get better.
Yeah.
And that's really, really hard for most people to work underneath somebody that's always looking for improvement. So if you go to your boss and every time you go to your boss, they're like, Sasha, glad you did 65% conversion rate, but why wasn't it 67.5?
Yeah.
Eventually you're going to be like, this a-hole is unpleasable.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons I got to have filters between me and most of my team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have direct reports because the way that I react, always looking to improve, can be really, really harsh for people to hear. It's
How do you not have direct reports? Do you have like leadership layer that's just flat? They
yeah.
don't report to you? You report
So
to each
everybody
other?
technically reports to Kim, my COO,
Okay,
and then she reports to me, and my executive assistant reports to me.
got it.
Everybody else, Kim is my filter. Now, I still go do one to ones. I still do what we call 5x5s out of like the entrepreneurial operating system, like the EOS thing.
Mhm.
So just yesterday, I have a great paralegal, like really great, that drives to an office that's further away from our house than the other one. And everybody on my leadership team was telling me why, and it didn't make sense. And so, like, I'll go pull her to the side, but that's not where we're really talking about like her performance. It's more of a, I just want to get to know you. I want to understand this in your words because I think things are getting filtered out by the time they come to me. And what we found whenever I talked with her was the office that she drives to follows the systems 100%, like 100%.
And
The
others?
office that she was previously in that she doesn't like, that she drives past, that's closer to her house, maybe 70% of the time they follow the systems, and then they kind of fudge some other stuff. But what that causes for her is more chaos. So we do print and Colby testing on everybody that works for me, and a lot of times people will be like higher fact finders. They want to understand more information, and then they'll be a little bit lower on the quick start. They'll want to make sure that as long as things are going the way they're supposed to, I'm 100% dedicated to this. But if you throw me a curveball, it's extra stressful. And so the office that she drives past has more quick starts in it, or people that are a little bit more adaptable, I would say. And so they'll kind of jump out of the process to do things to help people, which is great. It's great client service, but it will drive somebody that's looking to follow the process nuts. So every once in a while, I can go do that kind of stuff without making people upset, but otherwise everything goes through Kim.
Got it. Most of the things that you do is leadership, and I've seen a lot of your videos. So I guess it's leadership and some marketing.
I really, really want to push for videos. One of the things that we've done a lot of, kind of my pet project, is I want the client videos. I want like we have a little over 2,000 Google reviews between all the offices, and that's great. But I want like a web page or a landing page of like 150 video testimonials from clients, and that's way harder to get for us. Like, even though we do a lot of volume, people don't like being on video.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
very difficult.
it's rough. And then some people are just bad at video, and so you can't use it. And so we're trying to work that up. That's one of my big things. I like doing some of that marketing. I think most of the videos of me in them need more work or redone. The audio will be bad. The video we get constantly better at. We actually have a full-time videographer on the team now,
I
and
saw
so she's
that.
doing some really cool things.
She's on your website, like a
Yeah, yeah,
content something title.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so she's doing really great. Um, but yeah, I dabble in the marketing, but they try and keep me out of that for the most part. Um, I'll come up with some ideas and push them. But again, whenever you get to this level, you find, you know who Dan Sullivan is?
sure.
So Dan Sullivan has this amazing quote that hit me in my chest whenever somebody told it to me.
What was it?
Um, he runs a big coaching group. I've never been in it,
Mhm.
but I know a lot of people that are.
My partner did.
And
Yeah, we love his books.
yeah,
Yeah.
at dinner one night, I was talking about how like I was diving back into some parts of my business, um, and a guy looked me straight in the face and said, whenever you get your joy and your ego out of being the hero, it's a problem. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm just trying to make my business run better. And he said, you need to make sure that whenever you start putting the fires out and they're all gone, that you don't become an arsonist. And that just
Yeah.
hit me super hard because that's what I was doing. I was putting it under the guise of, I want to make my business better.
Hmm.
It wasn't broken, Sasha. It was like, I'm just going in and breaking stuff to break stuff. And so That's been a real learning curve for me over the last 2 years is how do I make sure that I'm going through channels? How do I respect my leadership team? You want your leaders to leave, go around them, make them feel like they aren't empowered. Um, make your team feel like they can come straight to you versus through their boss. Um, that's really a quick way to not only handicap your leadership team and make them ineffective, but they'll leave whenever they don't feel valued.
Sure. How many hours a week do you average?
Um, I don't know. I don't really have a schedule. So I do Wednesdays, uh, essentially after one, I got a full book. So I got just meetings back to back after Wednesdays. And then sometimes I'll step in if we have like a scheduling conflict. I like doing real trial work. So like actually going to court. And so if we got like a fun case or something like that, I'll pop into it, but not a couple hours a week.
Do you ever think about starting or acquiring another business? Something that's not related to law?
Um, no, well, not really. I love working on cars.
Mm-hmm.
So, like my background is I like to create with my hands. I love to paint old cars, fix up pre-World War II cars, build race cars, stuff like that. So it's not hard for me to find ways to occupy my time today. It was hard for me to accept that I could, but once I really found that the business runs well with me not necessarily being in it every day, just
Mm-hmm.
kind of steering the ship, making sure my leadership team has the support they need. And that's why it's hard for me to answer the question, like, how many hours do you work?
Got
Like,
it.
my leadership team can text me any time of day. Like, giving them 100% support is super important to me. Or I have one attorney that does pretty contentious litigation. That's his whole role. And so, like, we might jump on a 5-10 minute call here or there, or I might come into the office and go over some strategy stuff with him. Um, I'll tell you though, everybody really appreciates it whenever I work less. Everybody's happier, Sasha.
That's got to be an amazing feeling. I
It
also
really is.
find it
Um,
curious. Just last night, I was listening to a podcast called Acquiring Minds. It's all about entrepreneurship through acquisition, ETA. I've done this a couple of times. I built, sold businesses, bought business, including this marketing company. I bought it, I didn't start it. And the guy who was on the podcast, he came from the world of high tech, like Silicon Valley kind of high tech.
yeah,
And when the interviewer, he bought a business that's like very hands-on business. And the guy who runs the podcast, he asked him like, why such a switch? And he's like, a lot of people in high tech, after they finish their 9 to 5 or 9 to 9, whatever it may be, they go and they do something with their hands.
yeah,
Intellectual work alone is just not enough. You got to stimulate yourself doing something with your hands.
yeah, yeah. I think part of it's just like if you look at the Colby scores, that fourth silo, your fourth Colby number,
Mm-hmm.
is like what you do with tangibility, like whether or not you're more conceptual or whether it works better to have things like in front of you. And I think it just depends on that to a good degree. I'm not the biggest believer in personality tests, but I think that it gives good insight in how to communicate. And so I think especially for a lot of people that are in like high tech, they're looking to be creators. And sometimes creating with your hands feels like a great relief after you've used your brain for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows you to kind of do both. Um, I think for me, the thing that I would think about with a new business, and this is the problem with most law firms, just to be blunt, it's a horrible business model. Like law firms without reoccurring revenue, you're
I'm glad
always
you said
chasing.
it that I didn't. I always thought it, but
um, and I don't want to misspeak here, kind of take things out of context, but it's great to help a lot of people. But especially like for what I do, you'll see firms that try and do these like membership programs or
mm-hmm.
these ideas of reoccurring revenue. It's really, really hard to get something that makes sense for both the client and the firm, where one of them isn't taking advantage of the other. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of them I see it's the client taking advantage of the firm, but I also see ones where it's the firm taking advantage of the client. And so from that perspective, there's a lot better business models. I mean, I think that, software as a service is probably one of the absolute best business models available out there. And that's why you see so many people that run successful firms try and go launch like a software suite, say, here's all of our
Yep.
tech stack. We
Yep.
bundled it up and now you can buy it from me. Um, I'm not passionate about that the same way in this. I think the reason that I'm so good at what I do is I genuinely care about these families. And because I genuinely care, I want to make sure that they're getting the best service or the best product package that I can deliver and that my team can deliver. I don't know that I could do the same thing like bundling a software or something like that. I might change my mind in the future, but or it really irks me whenever you see like guys hit $1 million of revenue or $5 million of revenue and then hold themselves out as like law business coaches. Um, you ain't, I don't know. Tony Robbins has a great quote where he says like, a fifth grader can teach a third grader math. You don't have to be, a master's in education to train people. And so from that perspective, I struggle with it a lot because I think that's what they're doing. Um, it's probably just some imposter syndrome. I think coaching is rough because whenever people don't listen to what you suggest for them, um, they blame you, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you look at my marketing plan and you're like, all right, you're doing these things great, but you need to add these two things. And if I don't add those two things and we talk a couple months down the road and I'm like, Sasha's coaching doesn't work, it really has nothing to do with you, right? Like,
Yeah. I don't think that's how most people are. I think that they just recognize that you can tell me anything. You can teach me anything, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to go and do it.
yeah,
Because I am ultimately the CEO of my life and of my business, and I report to no one. I can't be fired.
yeah. I think one of the things I struggle with too is, um, man, this is going to sound wrong to say it. I don't read a lot of books. Um, I hang out with a lot of authors and I hang out with a lot of people that read a lot of books. I only want to read books that people have told me will change my life. I don't just, people on my leadership team have a book club where they read like a book every couple of weeks. I'm not interested in that because I value execution more than education. I want to make sure that I'm learning one thing and really crushing it versus knowing how to do everything. Um, and I think so many people that I see struggle in their law firm, especially, get a little bit too much into education and they forget the execution part.
Yeah, one of my coaches early on told me that most people are askholes. Like, what does that mean there? He's like, they keep on asking how to do something. They keep on yearning for knowledge, and then they do nothing with it.
Yeah,
So it's asking for the sake of asking, not asking for the sake of actually doing something with it.
yeah. And I think that's really hard. And I think some of it's imposter syndrome, right? Like, I know I'm not the smartest person I know. Um, I know there's a lot of people a lot smarter than me that aren't as successful in running their firm. And I worry that it's because they're getting that education. They're always looking for that one easier thing to do rather than just put a little bit of work in on the stuff they already know. I look at Tommy Mello, the guy that owns A1
Mm-hmm.
Garage
Yep.
Doors. He's
Very
doing
successful guy.
$1 billion in garage doors a year.
They did $1 billion. I thought that he's at like a couple hundred million. $1 billion.
No, that thing's growing. He just came back to Georgia. I mean, the guy's growth rate on that is amazing. He
Mm-hmm.
has garage door service writers, like garage door techs, that are making more than most attorneys
Mm-hmm.
with a high school diploma and a
Yep.
hard work ethic.
Yep.
And I think that what he's able to accomplish in that space is pretty mind blowing.
Yeah.
And the way he does it is really just say, here's the 5 things that make a business run. Go do these 5 things.
And do them well.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty wild to think of.
Josh, amazing insights. I think that the offer, as you put it, you're on Facebook, Josh
Yeah.
Nelson. If somebody who is watching this or listening to this podcast recording is like, I need to go learn from this guy, because to get over the $10 million hump in any industry, let alone law, is incredibly challenging. I don't know what the stats are, but back in the day, about 10 years ago, 1 out of 25 businesses crossed over $1 million line, and 1 out of 2,500 crossed $10 million line.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like 0.04%. So I believe that the numbers haven't changed. Maybe for $1 million line, it changed. There's probably a higher percentage now than there was back 10, 12, 15 years ago when I read this. But as far as crushing the $10 million line, it's probably still a fraction of 1%.
Yeah.
It's got to be a fraction of 1%. So what you have accomplished in a relatively short span of time, 10 years, is remarkable. So you're listening or you're watching this podcast. There is a reason why you listen and watch this podcast, and it's because you want to grow your law firm. Josh Nelson has done it. Look him up on Facebook, Josh Nelson. Just ask him, can I spend a little bit of time in your office learning from you? And invest the time to go to Georgia. I forget, where about in Georgia are you?
Metro Atlanta. So we
Metro.
have offices in Woodstock, Marietta, and Gainesville.
Got it. My other highly respected business owner, I don't want to call him a lawyer because he is a lawyer, formerly a lawyer, Luis Scott.
Yeah.
Built a 15 eight-figure lawyer, also in Atlanta.
Yeah, he's one of the few coaches too that doesn't have sales pitches at his big events. They're really all education. Which again, like I said, I got to applaud you because you're one of the guys that's being honest about $1 million take homes, a heck of a lot better than $1 million revenue. And Luis is the same way. Yep. Whenever you go to his like weekends that he puts on from 8-figure, it's not a hidden sales pitch like most places are. I mean, he's really pounding you with information that you can take back and use, which is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So look up Josh Nelson, ask him for a little bit of help, and then execute.
Yeah, I do have a common name. So if you're looking me up, in my profile picture, it's actually me and Les Brown. So
do most people know who Les Brown is?
If you don't know who Les Brown is, you got to Google the man. He's like the #1 seller from the stage ever. He sold, I don't remember exactly what it was, but he's the #1 seller from the stage at the Georgia Dome back in the 90s. He's the African-American Tony Robbins.
He is African-American Tony Robbins, 100%. He's probably now well into his late 60s, early 70s, probably somewhere there.
Yeah, he's old.
He's old. Yeah, he is old. Yeah. He's been around a long time. I used to subscribe and read Success Magazine cover to cover.
I know. Can you imagine that guy was selling CD bundles for like $10K back in like the 80s?
Oh, I believe it. He's so good.
Like you think about like a 10K case today compared to like an info product, right? Yep. Like a Kajabi course or something like that somebody would sell today.
Yep.
You know, you might pay $2,500, $5,000, starts to have some elasticity in price. Back in the 80s,
on the cassette,
I don't even know.
Not even CD, cassette.
Yeah,
those were cassette tapes.
Yeah, just like a box of cassettes or CDs or whatever. I mean, for $10K back in the 80s, mind blown.
Yeah, he and Dan Kennedy. I don't know if you ever came across this guy.
Yeah.
He's the grandfather. Today, he's the grandfather of marketing and advertising, and he's terrific, and that's what he did.
Yeah.
Starting, I think, from the late 70s. Late 70s, he was selling those cassette tape programs. And by the way, all of that stuff by Les Brown, by Dan Kennedy, all of those guys, it works. The problem is most people who bought it didn't execute.
Oh, yeah.
This quote, I'm going to remember it forever. What you said a few minutes ago, you said that you value execution over education.
Yeah.
It is so true. There are so many, as my other mentor, Darren Hardy, put it, he said, there are so many educated failures.
Yeah.
Highly educated. Execution is everything.
It really is.
Josh, remarkable conversation. Thank you so much for your time, for the insights. Thank you for the offer to help anybody who reaches out to you. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sasha.